Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description. Everyone deserves a second chance. Marcus Wright. Good morning has come. The morning summer sun has now begun to illuminate the huge village of the Hidden Leaf, or simply Konoha. Now with a loud yawn, one of the most famous people in the shinobi world was waking up. He was tall with yellow, spiky hedgehog hair that reached the end of his neck. His skin was covered with a light tan, and on his cheeks there were 3 stripes, reminiscent of a fox's whiskers. In appearance he was a handsome man. Any person passing by would say that he was somewhere between 19 and 25 years old, only they were somewhat mistaken. Naruto Uzumaki was already almost 40 years old, a little more, and in October he would turn 38. Throughout his life, this hero accomplished many great things. It is impossible to list them all, but the most significant was his victory in the 4th Great Shinobi War. He was the one who, at the cost of incredible efforts, was able to defeat Uchiha Madara, not without the help of Obito, who betrayed him. After the war, the alliance did not fall apart, on the contrary, it expanded. If before anyone said what country he was from, now there was no point in this, because instead of 5 different countries, there was one united one. This fact helped Naruto in some ways. After the war, Naruto became a special Jonin ambassador from Konoha, and he was often sent to Suna, which he did not particularly resist. After all, one of Uzumaki's best friends lived there, and there was one person with whom he began dating a few months after the war. Temari. Who would have thought that a romance would develop between 2 Jonin ambassadors of Konoha and Suna, which after a year and a half would float to a new level. After those happy moments spent together, Temari and Naruto did not want to part, but to live together in joy and sorrow, despite all the difficulties and hardships. They got married, which everyone was happy about, especially Gaara, Tsunade, and Naruto's best friend Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke, after the war, for his enormous contribution to the victory of the alliance, received amnesty and became a Chunin of Konoha. Although he was still desirable for most of the girls of Konoha, he was still a bachelor, which Suigetsu, Kakashi, and Naruto were against. In fact, Sasuke was the last of the Uchiha clan, which means that only he could revive his clan. There was no one else. Madara was executed after releasing the Biju, and Obito died because Kurama's Yin chakra transmission killed Black Zetsu, and he kept Obito alive after Madara forced him to use the Geto Rinne. Naruto had no problems with the addition to the family. He and Temari had a son a year after their marriage. They named him Tsuneshito Dash. He looked like his father, only his hair was a little longer, and he didn't have stripes on his cheeks. But his eyes were like his mother's, light green. But before the couple had time to raise their first child, 3 years later the former Sabaku no gave birth to a daughter, who was like 2 peas in a pod like Temari in appearance, the same white hair with an orange tint, tied in 4 tails. They named her Teo. Well, something pulled me to a description of the past concerning the family. Let's move on to the present day. Before Uzumaki had time to get out of bed and put on his home clothes, his air angel, that's what Naruto called his wife, had already started to wake up. And she looked like an angel now, long light hair, which was now loose, a snow-white nightgown similar to a kimono, perfectly harmonized with her natural beauty, which had not disappeared over the past 20 years. Here she opened her eyes and saw her beloved and smiled. "Good morning, dear," she said in a sweet voice that made Naruto smile widely and kiss her. The kiss would have lasted forever if 12-year-old Teo hadn't come running into their room. "Hello, everyone!" The little copy of Temari shouted happily, causing the couple to smile at her. She immediately ran up to Naruto and started shaking him. "Dad, training!" The second disaster of Konoha after Uzumaki Sr. screamed into her father's ear, causing him to pull his head into his shoulders. And Temari grinned, clearly knowing whose character she shared. Hey, calm down, Dadabeo. Only when you teach me the new Dadamari technique." I decided to continue the Uzumaki family tradition with date. Naruto sighed resignedly and smiled weakly. "Oh, well. You'll get new equipment." This made Teo jump and hug her dad with joy, which almost made her strangle him. Just after breakfast. Fine. During breakfast. Now almost all of the Uzumaki were sitting at the table, eating their morning scrambled eggs with sausage, washing it all down with orange juice. Then, yawning loudly, a 15-year-old boy came into the kitchen, very similar to Naruto, except for the stripes on his cheek in the shape of a fox's whiskers and the color of his eyes. He looked as if he had been forced to run one lap around the world. "Oh! Look at our brave Chunin of Konoha. Sit down at the table." Temari teased her son slightly, causing him to just playfully snort and sit down at the table without a word. The elder Uzumaki, having taken another sip of juice, looked at his firstborn with a smile. "So how are you, Shinichito?" Naruto asked, watching the green-eyed man eat his breakfast. "It's fine," Shinichito said with his mouth full. "The mission was successful. The territory was cleared of bandits." And you look like you met some beautiful girl besides the bandits, and put the rest of your strength into her," Uzumaki Sr. said sarcastically. Such Uzumaki Jr. spits out the recently drunk, but not swallowed juice on his sister, which made her blush with anger, and her eye began to twitch, just like Shinichito's. "What? How did you know that?" The blonde screamed so loudly that they could be heard even in Suna. Then Shinichito realized that he had said too much and turned red as a tomato or Hyuga Hinata in his youth, which made Temari and Naruto smile sarcastically like cats who had eaten too much sour cream. So. The parents approached their red son, chanting, "It seems, our son Yashka. Do you have a girlfriend?" The couple finished together, laughing. And their son in 3, 2, 1. "None of your business, why. He screamed so loudly that it was surprising that flames didn't come out of his mouth. And the parents just continued to laugh, despite the fact that Teiyo didn't understand anything due to her age. "Oh, Shinichito. You know how to make your parents happy. Grandchildren will probably appear soon." Temari joked with a sweet smile, to which Uzumaki Jr. only snorted, to which his father ruffled his hair. Now, son! Don't be upset. We're just joking. We were young ourselves." Naruto kissed his wife on the cheek, causing Teiyo to blush from head to toe. "Okay, let's skip this topic. And one more thing, Dad." Here Uzumaki Jr. became serious. "Hokage-sama asked me to call you on an important matter." Here Naruto had already drunk the juice, and his daughter looked at him with fear. Her father would not be able to train her. Naruto noticed this and smiled. "Sunisher," slightly shortened from Shinichito, "are you having a day off today?" Naruto asked his son, to which he nodded. "Great, today you'll be teaching her the air pistol together with my shadow double." This made the girl jump with joy at the idea of being taught a cool technique. Shinichito was about to protest when his father put his hand on his shoulder. "Sunisher, you will soon have to become the captain of the Genin team, like me and Temari. You will have to protect them, teach them, praise them for their successes, and condemn them for what is wrong. In general, become something like a father to them. I believe in you completely," Naruto said to his son, strictly speaking and without a drop of lies, which almost made Sanashi's eyes water with admiration, like Rock Lee and Might Guy. "Yes. I understand everything, father," Uzumaki Jr. shouted, smiling, and looked at his sister. "In an hour at training ground number 11. Without delay? Is that clear?" "Yes, and I-san." Temari watched her family with a smile. She loved each member of the family very much, just as her mother loved her before her death. Shinichito is one of the best Chunin of Konoha, a specialist in the elements of wind and taijutsu, but he is still far from his parents. But this did not prevent the spouses from being proud of him as well as little Teiyo, although what kind of little one is she already 12 years old? But she became a genin at 5 years old, because when your parents are heroes of the Fourth War, they will train you until you sweat. Teiyo had amazing skills in ninjutsu and taijutsu, but just like her parents she did not have the skills for genjutsu, so Naruto taught her shadow clone, as a result of which she managed to graduate from the academy in the first year. In a couple of months, she can already be sent to the exam to become a Chunin. Her parents did not doubt that victory would await her. Here Naruto was already dressed in the Jonin uniform consisting of a green Chunin vest, a blue tight suit, sandals and gloves with shields. He also had his trophy from the war behind him, Gunbai Uchiha, Madara Uchiha and Obito Uchiha, since this weapon was perfectly suited to the wind element, which Naruto owned to perfection. Over all those 20 years, Naruto learned a lot. He improved his skills in taijutsu to the level of the current Hokage, Hatake Kakashi, mastered wind, water, earth, and lightning to perfection, which is why he was able to learn to use the famous space-time technique of his father Namake's Minato, Flight of the Thunder God. At the same time, he completely mastered Inton, lava element, Kekkei Genkai inherited from Son Goku's chakra and sand control, although he was a little far from Gaara's level. Learned to a very high level of skill in Kenjutsu, as the gunbai was not only a defense and guide for air techniques, but also a melee weapon through which chakra could be conducted to increase the sharpness of the blade. Naruto, having dressed up to the end, created a very durable shadow clone, knowing the sharpness of tail. Well, that's it, family, I'm going. Bye. Before Naruto could leave, his wife came up to him, hugged her husband, and kissed him. Come back, dear, Temari said quietly after finishing the kiss. Naruto just smiled and hugged her, saying, I will definitely come back, my angel. Naruto also said quietly, and kissing her tenderly, he disappeared into Shunshin. Naruto was now walking to the residence along a crowded street when suddenly he shuddered slightly, a familiar feeling. Hello, Kurama, Naruto mentally greeted his old friend who was inside him, a huge red Biju fox with 9 tails. He mentally saw Naruto in his subconscious and grinned good-naturedly. Hello, Naruto, said the fox. Why haven't you talked to me for so long? Have you forgotten that you're a Jinchuriki? That's witty, cool, really witty, Uzumaki said playfully, making Kurama laugh loudly in his subconscious. I was just preparing my daughter for the Chunin exam and prepared to have a third child with Temari. Kurama grinned sarcastically like a perverted Jiraiya. Naruto blushed at this, first from embarrassment, and then from anger at the perverted fox, as it turned out. None of your business! Naruto yelled, like Shinichiro, in his subconscious to such an extent that Kurama winced and covered his furry ears with his clawed paws. Seeing that his best friend had mentally calmed down, Kurama continued. I'm afraid that because I'm sealed in you, this is my business. Although I admit that you are a virtuoso in this area. He tried to encourage Uzumaki, who only snorted. Is that all you have? Yes, you're a meanie. Say hello to your family. And give Teo a kiss on the cheek from me. The old Biju asked his Jinchuriki, who only grinned but nodded. Coming out of his subconscious, Naruto was already at the entrance to the residence. After standing there for a minute, he entered and headed straight to the Hokage's office. Hatake Kakashi had a fun life for the last 20 years. At the end of the war, there was a shortage of shinobi in the villages, so many war heroes became jonin and began to work for a long time to restore what was destroyed during the war. Oh, how much water has flowed under the bridge! But thanks to the absolute alliance between the countries, the worst was avoided. In the first decade, the economies of the countries were restored, homes were repaired. Also, for many, the relationship between Naruto and Temari was a surprise, because everyone thought that she was in love with Shikamaru, but as it turned out, they were best friends, and he was in love with Ino, with whom he soon married, and then twins were born, a boy and a girl named Inomea and Shikaten. But then sad events happened. First Satsuki Jinoki died at a very old age, and 5 years later, Hokage Tsunade. As a result, Hatake Kakashi was chosen as the new Hokage, although at first it was planned to make Naruto, but he refused, saying that now he has a family that is more important than any childhood dream. As a result, Kakashi experienced the pain that Hiruzen and Tsunade experienced, and the books of the long-dead Jiraiya more or less helped him, but they already bored him, and he would only see a new part in the afterlife. Then there was a knock on the door, from which a long-haired man with long ash hair, and having wrinkles that even his famous mask on his face could not hide, said in a voice as if his whole life was one continuous boredom. Come in. Then the one who Kakashi was happy to see, a student after all, entered the office. Naruto! It's good to see you, my friend. Kakashi perked up and smiled through his mask. I'm also glad to meet Kakashi. The Jonin smiled, and approaching his teacher, he hugged him. So, how's life? How's the family? Family? Great. Naruto smiled. Temari's vacation ends tomorrow, which makes her incredibly happy. She really doesn't like a quiet and boring life. It turns out that Tsunade has a girlfriend, can you imagine? He's currently teaching my shadow clone Teo the air pistol technique. Wow! Isn't it a bit early? White Fang's son grinned through his mask. Although I'm talking to someone who mastered mass shadow cloning when he was 12, so anything can be expected. This made the Hokage and the Jonin laugh as they remembered the past, but Naruto soon calmed down, remembering the serious matter his son had warned him about. Okay, Kakashi. What happened? On this note, Kakashi became slightly gloomy, even became somewhat more active, as if the lives of all the inhabitants depended on it. He showed up again, Naruto. Naruto was slightly surprised by this, nothing more. That is, the mysterious Kurahirozu, hero killer in Japanese, the one who killed Tsunade, and more than 50 veterans of the Fourth World War? Yes, it is him. He was seen in a small village near the country of rice fields. Now we have an ideal chance to capture or eliminate him. Therefore, you will go on this mission with Temari, Sasuke, Sakura, and Shikamaru. Capture or kill. Understood? Hatake asked his student sternly. Yes, everything is clear, Kakashi. We set out tomorrow at dawn. Having said this, Naruto folded the seals and disappeared into the smoke, leaving Kakashi alone with himself. Then he heard a crack, and turned around because his photo with Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura fell and the glass from the photo frame broke. This is not good. The next day, not far from the border in the land of rice fields, 4 shinobi in green vests appeared from behind the trees of the dark forest. They ran and jumped on branches at an excessively high speed, which proved that the people were in a hurry. So what is he doing there? Asked a woman with long pink hair tied in a braid with one distinctive feature, a high forehead. Still, I don't understand, what is a famous Nukenin with no name but a nickname doing there now? I don't know. A brunette with red eyes in which a drawing of a hexagonal star with a triangular shuriken inside was burning, dressed in a dark green vest, which emphasized that he was a rank lower than his comrades, joined the conversation. His actions have no logic. He is a man thirsty for battle. What do we have on him? Asked Naruto, who had been silent until now, holding hands with Temari. Aichh, the smartest and at the same time the laziest shinobi of Konoha, as always with a hairdo similar to a pineapple, named Shikamaru Nara. Yawned lazily. In 20 years, he became almost a copy of his father. The same beard, slightly grayed hair, the only difference between them is the lack of scars on the right side of his face. Actually, nothing. He appeared somewhere 15 years ago, and at his hands first Tsunade died, and then about 56 veterans of the war. Then on his conscience is the destruction of the Hidden Reed village with the elimination of the entire civilian population. Uchiha whistled at this, clearly not expecting such a meat grinder from Man X, or as he was nicknamed by the people Kurohirozu. Sakura and Temari supported him in this opinion, and Naruto only clenched his fists. It seems that everyone understood that we are not taking prisoners. Everyone nodded to this question, and Temari only looked at her husband slightly worriedly, and squeezed his hand tighter. He only turned his face towards her. Temi, don't worry. Everything will be fine. Naruto smiled at her encouragingly, to which she smiled back, causing Sakura and Sasuke to grin and Shikamaru to yawn again. Romance, damn it! The last Uchiha rolled his eyes, which made Sakura unable to hold back a grin. What's so jealous? Find your wife. Uchiha burst out laughing. Apparently he had been told something like that before, and probably very often. Then a powerful gust of wind blew towards them. They almost fell from it, but retreated in time. We are close. Everyone quickly headed towards the source of the stream, and as soon as they had walked 2 kilometers they stopped in horror. What? Temari began in shock, and squeezed her husband's hand tighter. This, Naruto picked up on her train of thought, being no less amazed. This? They looked in horror at the giant crater, reminiscent of the result of Pain's destruction of Konoha, but this one was bigger and emanated a dark aura, an aura of death. In the very center stood a man with scarlet skin and bright orange eyes and long horns extending from his forehead, dressed only in black pants. He just stood there and whispered the same phrase. The team tried their best to hear what the killer was saying, but they didn't hear it and went down to the bottom of the crater. In the name of Zeref! The demon growled, seeing the team from Konoha, and began to be covered in a black aura. POV Lucifer. Master. Lord Zeref. Where are you? I've been trying to get to you through the path of blood for 15 years. So why can't I? These pathetic wretches. The council mages sent me here, from you, my father, from the world that we were supposed to change with Deliora and Yendi, but my destiny is to rot in this scum. Destroy these pathetic people. Women, men and children, these pathetic bugs. Destroy all living things. The darkness must come. Today it's time to show the essence of the truth of this world once again. What a dilapidated village, and what impudent people. And so weak. Their screams, their agony. They groan from blood, from torment, from the death of their loved ones. What beauty it was when some sobbing woman huddled in the corner holding her baby and begging to spare them. And I spared them from suffering, turning them into bloody remains. No one could hurt me, no one could surprise me. When I finished, I saw the whole truth. Everything that my creator and I had strived for. But the place stank, and I decided to destroy it. Having accumulated Zeref's gift within me, death magic, I released this divine power. It fulfilled its task perfectly. All that was left of this village was ashes blowing in the wind, and I stood in the center of a deep crater. In the name of Zeref. In the name of Zeref, I tried to appeal to my father, but my prayers were not heard. Only more bugs came, 2 women, 3 men. The brown-haired, the brunette and the girls are not interesting to me, but the blonde one emanates incredible power, comparable to the power of the Master. It will be interesting to fight him. End of Lucifer's POV. Before everyone had time to get ready, Lucifer appeared in front of them and hit the ground with all his might, sending them all scattering. Naruto was the first to wake up, and quickly putting the seal on, he began to take in more air. Yotan, Nareri, lava release, flow, a huge wave of magma flew out of the blonde's mouth towards the demon, from which Lucifer jumped back. Then he grinned and a hieroglyph, death, appeared on his palm. As soon as the hand with the hieroglyph was covered with aura, the demon hit Naruto's attack with it, from which the darkness began to devour the lava until it disappeared completely. Naruto was shocked by this. No, of course, he knew those who could absorb or destroy techniques, but from that darkness there was an unimaginable anger and hatred, from which Naruto almost shuddered. But he still deliberately took Lucifer away from the others had already woken up, and Sasuke activated his dojutsu. In his right eye, the pupil turned red and a drawing of a hexagonal star appeared in it, with a 3-bladed shuriken inside, and in his right, the entire eyeball turned red and 6 concentrated circles moved away from the pupil, each of which had 3 tomo. Naruto, seeing his friend's mood, grinned and activated the senjutsu of the Rikudo Sennin, from which the lids of the eyes turned orange, and the pupils became similar to toads, and on top of them, narrow fox pupils. Then he began to cover the fox with a veil. 7 Gokudams formed behind his back, and in one hand he had one of them formed into a short staff, in the other he held gunbai. Doesn't this remind you of Sasuke? Naruto asked. There is a little bit. Uchiha closed his eyes. Well, what's next? Yes. All of you move aside. Attack only on command. Naruto asked the remaining 3. Temari was about to object, but Naruto turned to her. Temari, the only ones who can fight him now are Sasuke and me. I don't want you or them to get hurt. I understand. Temari said quietly, then Naruto was already in front of her and kissed her. She accepted the kiss, but tears welled up in her eyes, as if she felt that he would die. Please be careful. I promise, he quietly told her. Here he was already near the Uchiha, and they nodded to each other and made a dash towards Lucifer. He only grinned and created some kind of crystal sword in his hand. Naruto was already in front of the demon, and was about to cut off his horned head with his short staff, as he blocked the attack with his weapon. Naruto was amazed by this, because Shikudama is the most deadly technique. The only thing that can resist it is the senjutsu of the Sage of the 6 Paths, and this one not only did not feel natural energy, but also did not feel chakra at all. There was something else. Lucifer did not waste time and created another crystal sword in his hand and lunged, intending to pierce Uzumaki, but he sharply jumped back from the attack. Ha! Uzumaki grinned at the demon's failure, and as soon as he made his move, Naruto attacked himself. Doton Chidakuku, Earth Style, Rotating Earth Core. From this, a section of the earth with a diameter of 3 meters sank to a great depth, but as soon as he sank the enemy, he turned his staff back into a Gakudama ball and connected it with the remaining 7, causing the ball to expand significantly and become covered in spikes. Game over! Naruto launched his attack into the pit, causing an explosion comparable to a nuclear warhead. The blonde hurried away from the zone of maximum destruction, but immediately became slightly exhausted. The technique was quite expensive. Naruto, didn't you overdo it with the attack? Kurama asked mentally, watching through Naruto as the energy of the attack soared into the air, and the ground cracked from its pressure. No, exactly. The blonde cleared his throat to the end. Did you see what he did? That's why you can't hold back. But you can definitely say with him. Here everyone began to see that some black chains began to wrap around the energy, pulling it to the very bottom of the pit, to the still living Lucifer. How is that possible? Temari pressed her hands to her mouth in horror. And Naruto's technique is absolute destruction into atoms. It is even stronger than Jin-tun and is not absorbed. What is happening? He's obviously an exception. Sakura, no less amazed, said quietly. Meanwhile, when Naruto's technique was finally absorbed, Lucifer jumped out of the pit, completely unharmed, and began to change. His horns became taller, black phantom wings appeared behind his back, his muscles increased, and bone growths appeared from his elbows and vertebrae. MWA ha ha ha. In the name of Zeref, you are pathetic. The demon growled at the stunned Uzumaki. Suddenly, a slightly stunned Sasuke appeared in front of him. Yeah. I didn't expect that from this handsome guy. Sasuke rubbed the back of his head, continuing to stare with his dojutsu eyes at Lucifer. That's true. Naruto pulled himself together after the shock of his technique's failure. Have you finished the review? Yes. But the results are far from encouraging. He has no chakra circulation, he is not human, and his energy is intangible to my eyes. I already understood that. Uzumaki got slightly angry. I don't sense his chakra either, but his emotional cover shows such incredible malice that compared to him, Madara is the most innocent little angel. And that's what's scary. What? His ability to absorb. He was able to absorb my mixed Gakudama, and that's impossible. But the thing is, when he absorbed the Gakudama, he became stronger, and because of that, his hatred increased and is still growing in some kind of flow. Whatever he's going to do, it smells of death. So that's why you didn't let the others fight him, Sasuke guessed, to which the blonde nodded. And we have a chance? Sasuke looked at his friend with hope, but he only looked at him sadly. Naruto? Uchiha was scared. Over the past years he realized that Naruto was never wrong. Now Uzumaki closed his eyes thinking about the situation. There is. But it's extremely small. Naruto said gloomily, so that only Sasuke could hear him. We'll have to give it our all, not giving him a chance to absorb it. Then, the last Uchiha took out his Kusanagi. Let's get to work. Nodding to each other, the reincarnations of Hagoromo's sons rushed towards Lucifer and struck him with a Kusanagi and Gunbai, but he blocked them with his crystal swords. But they, having imbued the weapons with wind chakra, pressed on the demon's swords, breaking them, were able to inflict a slight wound on him. Lucifer became angry from this and released a small impulse, from which Naruto and Sasuke flew a meter, but they quickly retreated, from which they were saved from a shameful fall. You are not as pathetic as I thought. The monster grinned while the strongest shinobi stood up. And therefore I will give you a quick death. At these words, a dark aura began to swirl around Lucifer, causing Naruto's knees to tremble, and Sasuke saw it. Naruto, Sasuke was worried about his friend. Don't touch that energy or you'll die. Uzumaki warned him, thrusting his gunbai forward. Lucifer smirked again and released the accumulated dark energy in a dense beam that hit Naruto's gunbai. He held back the enemy's onslaught with all his might, but the enemy only intensified the attack, gradually causing Naruto to move back. When Lucifer stopped the attack, Naruto, sighing convulsively, was still holding his gunbai, which had become completely black from such dark energy. Take it! Uzumaki Geishi! Naruto released the accumulated dark energy in the form of a dark ball at the enemy. He does not have time to block or dodge his own energy, which is why the ball hits the demon and he is thrown back a couple of meters. Excellent! Uchiha grins. You're celebrating too soon. Naruto warned his friend. Meanwhile, one of Zeref's spawns slowly gets up with a bleeding wound in his chest. Lucifer was angry. This blonde turned out to be stronger than he expected, and he was also interested in finding out what kind of person this brunette was. So he began to create crystals that slowly swirl around him. The blonde began to watch Lucifer's actions carefully, waiting for his next move. So Naruto began to concentrate the wind chakra in his hands. The demon had already released his crystals into the duo. Naruto, however. Futon, air pistols. Naruto put out his palms in the form of pistols and compressed projectiles of wind, 5 centimeters in size, immediately flew out of them, crashing into the demon's crystals and turning into dust. Sasuke didn't have any problems either. He simply began concentrating chakra in his right eye. Shinra Tensei. All the projectiles began to scatter a meter away from the Uchiha, as they crashed into the barrier. After about 3 minutes, Lucifer stopped firing, seeing that it would not bring results. Sasuke immediately began to cover himself in his purple Susanoo and threw an attack from the Matagama necklace at him, which he calmly dodges, which was what Sasuke needed. The demon does not notice Uzumaki behind him. Meanwhile, the Uchiha finally forms his Susanoo hand. Then Sasuke began to stare intently with his left eye at the palm of the ghostly hand, causing a black flame to light up in it. At this time, Naruto began to create a Rasen Shuriken from lava in his hand. It's time! Anton! Sasuke, at the limit of his speed, finds himself near the demon and hits him with Amaterasu through his Susanoo. Yotan, Rasen Shuriken. Naruto threw his lava shuriken at Lucifer's back. The power of 2 powerful techniques caused an explosion, which made the ground under their feet tremble, and Naruto and Sasuke jumped away from the dangerous area of damage. When the smoke cleared after the explosion, the demon was terrifying to look at. Bones were visible in places, his entire back was burnt to a crust, and his sternum was mangled, but surprisingly, the Amaterasu on his chest was gone. Lucifer's face was twisted in a grimace of anger and pain. Bastards! The demon roared and was about to hit his hand on the ground for another attack when suddenly he froze, unable to move. He looked down at his feet and saw a huge black stripe leading to the brown-haired man sitting near the women. Shadow imitation technique completed. Shikamaru smirked. However, Lucifer also smirked, which was incomprehensible to everyone. Fool! Here Lucifer sent darkness through Shikamaru's shadow until it reaches the Jonin himself, causing him to shake in paralysis from pain. His eyes turned black and a strange black liquid began to flow from his mouth and eyes, which merged with the shadow. Die! Lucifer used his mind to yank his shadow and Shikamaru's shadow along with his soul. Before anyone could react, all that was left of the Nara clan genius was dust and his Jonin form. And oh! The former dog, but after a minute of silence, slowly approached a small crater covered in dust. Is this the end? Suddenly, a crystal blade appears from the dust and pierces the uncomprehending Temari in the heart. And oh! Temari. Tears were dripping down her angel's face. She used her last strength to put her hand to her husband's face. Sakura. But before he could finish speaking, his heart was pierced by a still living demon. Die, the last thing Lucifer said, and let go of the blade and truly died. Naruto began to cough up blood, but pulled the blade out of his chest and fell next to his wife. Looks like this is the end. Naruto said quietly, hugging the dying Temari, and she hugged him back. Why, yes, but we have fulfilled our due, Naruto, I love why you. She kissed her lover for the last time, and died. I too, you, love. Ly Naruto hugged Temari with his last strength, and died, with a smile on his lips, leaving his friends who survived this battle to cry over their bodies. But, no! You won't die! Kurama used his last strength to form seals and the bodies of Temari and Naruto disappeared into white light. After making sure that the demon was already dead, Naruto ran to his dying wife. Temari. Tears were dripping down his angel's face. She used her last strength to put her hand to her husband's face. As Sakura remembered. But before he could finish speaking, his heart was pierced, to the horror of the others, by a still living demon. Die, the last thing Lucifer said. He let go of the blade and truly died. Naruto began to cough up blood, but pulled the blade out of his chest and fell next to his wife. Looks like this is the end, Naruto said quietly, hugging the dying Temari, and she hugged him back. Why, yes, but we have fulfilled our duty, Naruto, I love why you. She kissed her lover for the last time, and died. I too, you, love. Why Naruto hugged Temari with his last strength, and died, with a smile on his lips, leaving his friends who survived this battle to grieve over their bodies. But, no! You won't die! Kurama quickly folded the seals and the bodies of Temari and Naruto began to disappear in the golden light. Where am I? Naruto didn't understand, being in some kind of whirlpool, in the literal sense of the word. He was like some kind of spark, flying down into the light along with many others. Naruto didn't even try to move so as not to go to the light, because he didn't care, only his life was flowing before his eyes, from his childhood alone, to his marriage to Temari and the birth of Tsunade and Teiyo. He remembered every joy and every sorrow, every victory and every defeat. The faces of his friends and enemies flashed before his eyes. It is true what they say, that when you die, your life flashes before your eyes. And now he was about to get into that hole where the others were descending, as he understood the souls, when suddenly his soul took a different course, separated from the whirlpool of souls and disappeared in a blue flash. Naruto, opening his eyes, saw that he had been transported to a painfully familiar space, sometimes a white, sometimes a gray sky, and instead of a floor, muddy blue water, and not far from him, in the air, a horned old man with long hair, part of which was combed upwards, hanging, dressed in a white haori made of chakra with a high collar, on which were patterns of Magatama. Long time no see, old friend. Naruto chuckled, to which the old man smiled and opened his eyes with Rinnegan. Yeah. It's been a long time. Just some 20 years. For you it's a long time, and for me it's a moment, but I'm glad to see you, even if it's a sad moment. Naruto smiled sadly at this. Well, yes. I thought I would live to be 40, but in the end I died 3 years earlier. Uzumaki threw his hands behind his head out of habit. Well, what can I do? Oh, and can I ask? Of course. Hagoromo already guessed about Naruto's question. Since I died, then now I am being reborn into another part of the Azura cycle? From this question, Hagoromo's eyes widened slightly, but then he chuckled. Almost. This statement put the blonde's logic in a dead end. You are being reborn into yourself. What do you mean? Naruto was amazed by this fact. Hagoromo meanwhile created Shikujo from his chakra and lightly touched the water on which Naruto stood. You see, when I created the Biju, I knew that there would be people who would become their carriers, Jinchuriki. I also understood one thing perfectly, that they could become friends and a connection would arise between them. He began to show the relationship between a person and a Biju. Connection? Naruto knew what the old man was getting at, because after he became friends with Kurama, they had a mutual understanding and, in a sense, a connection that couldn't be explained in words. Looks like you guessed what I was talking about. Naruto just nodded and Hagoromo continued. So, when such a connection arises between them, the Biju are able to use one special technique given to them by me. What is this? Naruto tried to understand what exactly Kurama did. Hagoromo touched the water of Shikugo again and began to appear as a Biju, folded seals, and the man's body began to disappear in a golden glow, and Naruto understood. Anti-reality resurrection technique. These words sounded like thunder in Uzumaki's head. This technique allows the Biju to resurrect its Jinchuriki in another world or reality. But, if the Biju could resurrect their Jinchuriki, then why did Gaara die, or were those who did die returned through Edo Tensei? Naruto tried to understand. To which Hagoromo sighed in irritation. Did you miss me? I told you, when a connection is created between a Biju and a Jinchuriki, the Biju can be resurrected by the Jinchuriki in another world or reality, and Gaara was previously at odds with Shikaku. And as for those Jinchuriki, Here's the catch. Let a person be resurrected in another world, for his world he remains dead, and therefore with the help of your Edo Tensei or Gedo Rine, you can bring him back. But after death or release, he will return to where he was resurrected with the help of the Biju. After hearing this, Naruto sat down without a word and grabbed his head. Why me? Why me? Naruto screamed with tears welling up in his eyes, which Hagoromo didn't understand. Why did Kurama decide to resurrect me? Why not Shikamaru? Why not Temari? Why me? Hagoromo landed quietly on the water, walked up to the crying blonde and placed his hand on his head, ruffling his hair, causing Naruto to instantly calm down. Calm down, Naruto, Hagoromo smiled. Kurama resurrected you because you are his only friend, except for me. What would you do if your friend died? I would. Naruto hung his head, remembering the deceased Niji Hyuga, his friend, and the brother of his best friend Hinata. After all, Naruto was ready to sacrifice himself to bring him back. I did the same. Now, in Hagoromo's space, a dead silence arose, which the legends of the shinobi world were afraid to break. And yet Naruto took the floor. As I understand it, during ordinary resurrections, the Jinchuriki is resurrected immediately, without determining where to be resurrected, so why am I here? At this, Kagaya Otsutsuki's son chuckled and was surprised at Naruto's progress and thinking. I see you've gotten smarter in 20 years, Uzumaki. That's right. Unlike other Jinchuriki, you are the reincarnation of Azura, my son, so you have more privileges in the area of resurrection. So let's get started. Knowing you, you won't want to go to another reality of your world, so you have a choice of worlds, a world with only one continent, entwined with a line around the planet, where there are many seas and intelligent sea creatures, and there is now a cheerful golden age of piracy. The golden age of piracy? Uzumaki put his hand to his chin. It sounds tempting, but oh, no. Too unfamiliar. And I get seasick. That's true, the old man shrugged. Then there's the community of souls. By the way, they've heard about you. It's quite unusual there, and the wars with the Hollows are in full swing. Although I don't know much about it. This is the first time I've heard of this. So no. The blonde waved his hands. Is there any world identical to ours? Identical? Hagoromo thought. Yes. There is one Earthland. A world where there are wizards, all sorts of magical creatures, demons, dragons. Wizards and dragons? Uzumaki's jaw almost sank into space. I thought they were only in fairy tales. Yes. The magic there is similar to our techniques, only the structure is denser and slightly similar to senjutsu, so there you will have to convert all the techniques into spells if you decide to resurrect there. From what he heard, Uzumaki began to think, this world is similar to theirs, maybe he really can start a new life there. I choose Earthland. Naruto answered, to which Hagoromo nodded, stuck Shikujo into the water, and it began to glow with the same golden light that he saw in the last moments of his life, and even thought that Temari was wrapped in this light. Naruto began to feel that he was slowly sinking into the light. Now about the main thing, Naruto. Until you turn 16, I will block the Yang Seal, so you will not be able to use the 6 paths senjutsu until then. Also, something will be waiting for you on your 19th birthday. What do you mean? Like until 19? Naruto didn't understand the situation about his age, ignoring the sage's last sentence. As for me. And I forgot to say, Hagoromo lightly slapped himself on the forehead. Dash. With this resurrection, your body will become significantly younger. So, don't be surprised that you are now 4 years old. How much? Naruto was amazed and wanted to ask something else, but he had already completely disappeared from space. Good luck, young Uzumaki. But as soon as he began to meditate, a pale green sphere suddenly appeared, hanging in the air on par with the sage. Why didn't you tell Naruto about everything? The sphere spoke in a female voice, to which Hagoromo sighed. I told you, expect something at 19, and your time has not come yet. The old man calmly said to the sphere, which sighed in irritation, but he, not noticing this, had already closed his eyes and began to meditate. Meanwhile, at night on an unknown island, a giant black dragon woke up from sleep in its cave, sensing an unusual energy that was nearby. What is this? He thought, which is why he decided to check. Then he flapped his black as night wings, which caused him to be at a small height and headed towards the energy source. After about 5 minutes, he found a small crater in which lay a glowing golden, orange-haired boy, about 4 years old, according to the dragon, dressed in clothes that were not the right size and a vest. When the glow emanating from him ended, the dragon carefully landed near the boy, who at that time weakly opened his eyes. Where am I? He could barely make out a huge black silhouette, as consciousness left him again. The dragon, having thought about the situation, took the boy with his paw and, putting him on his back, went to his cave, deciding to keep the boy until the morning, and then find out where he was from and how he ended up here. That's it, a new chapter. POV Acnologia. MWAAHH. Oh. Yeah, I gaped and scratched my face with my claws. I had somehow forgotten when I developed this strange habit, because I hadn't had any facial hair for about 200 or 300 years, thanks to the scales. And the night was hard, and the day wasn't exactly shining with hospitality either. But closer to bedtime, the space-time continuum made it clear that something would happen today. Something unusual. Maybe this will dispel my boredom. So, having decided not to look at the time, I spent it, and was there something that foreshadowed something unusual? Of course, it's not the best, but it's definitely not unusual. And what happened in the end? The whole day passed as usual. I got up again, flew around the island about 20 times to unwind, killed a couple of deer for lunch, and for dinner. And in the evening, again a downpour with a thunderstorm in the evening, promising to end closer to night. And was there something that foreshadowed something unusual? Of course, it's not the best, but it's definitely not unusual. So that's it. Good night. And if time and space have nothing like that, then I'm going to bed. 3 hours later. Arg. Oh. Damn it, we slept. What's going on there? Wait a minute. Could it be a curvature? A curvature in space. That was already interesting. At least something interesting that day. So, without wasting a second, I crawled out of the cave and, soaring into the air, began to look for the source of this curvature, which took me about 10 minutes. And here it is, an inconspicuous-looking clearing. Almost. Except for the fact that in a small crater, God knows where it came from, a crack was shining brightly, which was that very curvature. And something is crawling out of it. But I wonder who? Maybe a demon? Maybe a whole horde of demons, who finally came to entertain me. And, from the resulting crack in space appeared a 4-year-old boy. An ordinary one. A 4-year-old. A boy. What the hell, I ask, huh? Okay, calm down. Calm down. I threw an angry, indignant and irritated glance towards the little one, who, apparently, was unconscious. The boy himself was strange, because we, dragons, can feel the souls of people very well and quite rarely influence them. There are only a few such dragons and I am one of them, but I almost never had to use it, there was simply no need. Coming closer to him, I began to examine the boy. His appearance is quite unusual, as is his soul. Judging by the boy's appearance, he is about 4 or 5 years old. His hair is orange, almost yellow. On each cheek there are 3 symmetrical striped whiskers, which looked quite comical, but not that much. Although the boy is only 4 years old, but his soul. It is as if he has already been an adult, otherwise such emotions are simply not typical of children. Plus his clothes, which are terribly big for him. Oh. It seems he woke up. Where am I? So, and here, the color of his eyes is dark blue. I was about to start questioning him, when he passed out again. Apparently, he didn't have the strength. I rubbed the back of my head, not knowing what to do, take him or leave him here. After all, on the one hand, it is unknown who he is. Why such a young body, an adult soul? Maybe he simply stole the body of a child. But on the other hand, maybe it is just a child, and the fact that he was near the curvature, and gave rise to such an effect? Okay, we'll figure it out. I muttered to myself, angry that there were more questions than answers now. I put the boy on my back and walked home, because a child who accidentally got smashed into a pancake was, oh how I didn't want it. 15 minutes later. Ahem. Yeah, and I haven't walked for about 50 years. And nothing surprising, wings are faster and more reliable, and less tiring. Yeah, apparently I've become completely lazy in my dragon years, and for some reason I think about them. Strange. Well, that's not the main thing now. The boy didn't wake up during this time, although considering how loudly I walked, I probably woke up the whole island. And this one doesn't give a damn. Okay, let him sleep, and it wouldn't hurt me either. HRR. A few hours later. Oh. How I sometimes hate this dragon rumor. Some kind of muttering. Who the F? Hee. I already forgot about this brat with an adult soul. So, opening my eyes, I saw that he was tossing and turning in his clothes and apparently already waking up. And that's right. He hasn't opened his eyes yet, but he's already stretching out. So, I wonder what should happen next. No way. I'll leave the intrigue that the most I'll learn from the future is today's weather forecast. So, boo-ga-ga-ga. Let's see what happens next. So, end of Acnologia's POV. Naruto POV. OHHH. Damn it. How my whole body hurts. It feels like I'm being completely squeezed, like when that Fuma Erasure almost crushed me with his mandala curse dash. Although, the sensations are, of course, a little different. This compression is absolutely uniform. And my skin feels like it's on fire. Arg. Oh my god, my head! My brain is about to explode. My last memories seem to be trying to take my mind away. I remember that mission. The horror of what that damn monster did, the anger and hatred that he killed Shikamaru first, the uncontrollable rage and pain after Tamari's death. Oh my god, Tamari. I didn't even notice how squeaky my voice was right now. Damn it. It seemed like the miscarriage from the other world had left a mark on me. It hurt. It hurt in my soul, so much so that I regretted that Hagoromo had revived me, and on top of that, my eyes, which had been closed until now, began to involuntarily fill with tears. Uninvited tears of grief from the loss of my beloved. How unbearable! NPOV Naruto. Hey boy! The huge black dragon bowed his head to the crying boy, but he did not react to him in any way, only pressed his knees to his face. Kukuyu! Hey! Come on, I'm not that scary. If you listened closely, you could clearly hear the offensive notes in the dragon's voice. The blonde still hadn't paid attention to the giant winged lizard, which was scratching the back of its head, frowning slightly. Hey! Kid! Man! The dragon didn't know how to address this guy. After all, right in front of him lay a boy with an adult soul. Anyway, kid! Stop crying, I'm not evil! Well, almost. The dragon roared. Naruto, ignoring the dragon, still lay and trembled, but no longer cried. The hurricane of emotions and feelings from the other world had already begun to subside little by little, but still caused him moral and spiritual pain, forcing him to tremble and press his knees to his chest. 10 minutes passed in complete silence, broken only by the irritated sniffling from the dragon's nose. It seems that watching a crying child or adult is tiring and somewhat irritating. And indeed, a sigh was already heard from his mouth. OHH. Calm down. Only calm up. The dragon either shouted or growled, in an incredibly loud voice, causing the walls of the cave to shake, and all the living creatures within 15 meters to run away in fear. Naruto, who had actually calmed down for a minute and a half and was simply lying there, reacted to this with lightning speed, but to no avail. He tried to jump up sharply, but in the end he jumped only 10 centimeters and, stupidly waving his arms, fell on his chin on the ground. Ha ha ha! The dragon was already laughing at the top of his lungs and beating his paws on the ground. You're so funny, boy! Ha ha ha! Naruto didn't understand this situation. How could he, a shinobi with almost 30 years of ninja experience, now, like a clown, trip over his own pants, which he had bought only 3 weeks ago, and they fit him perfectly? As a result, he, stupidly twisting his arms, hit his chin on the very hard ground and screamed like a ree. Stop! Uzumaki's jaw involuntarily dropped, remembering Hagoromo's warning before his resurrection. Oh, I forgot to tell you. With this resurrection, your body will become significantly younger. So don't be surprised that you are now 4 years old. Now everything fell into place for the ex-jonin. Except for one thing. Where the fuck, database, am I? Now Naruto's brain switched to, right now. He already understood that he was in a cave, quite spacious and, moreover, illuminated, apparently by a fire or a huge number of torches. And plus, there is someone here. No, not even that. There is someone here. The resurrected one decided to open his eyes after all. But what he saw made him dumbfounded and hiccup with fear. In front of him was the one Naruto considered a fiction or a monster from those fairy tales he read to himself in childhood. A dragon. Huge, black, scaly with rare blue patterns, the same as the body, black, bead-like eyes, and a mouth twisted into a semblance of a smile. Hello? The dragon raised his right paw, almost touching the ceiling with his claws. Naruto didn't know how to react, to rush at him with his fists, while not feeling a drop of chakra, to answer him, or just simply bang his head against the wall. Perhaps this is another side effect of the other world. So the choice of actions was obvious, of course, knowing Naruto's character. Hello? The boy carefully raised his small hand in greeting, and this hand was holding a kunai that was a bit heavy for him. The dragon looked at this with skepticism, so the blonde quickly put the kunai on the ground. That's better. Grinning, if that was what it was for the scaly face, perhaps, the dragon clapped his hands in joy, which was somewhat of a mistake. With this, he created a powerful stream of wind that sent Naruto flying into the wall. Oh shit! This scared the dragon and he started to panic, until Naruto opened his eyes wide and hiccuped from shock again today. But then... As fast as it was possible, Naruto pulled another kunai out of his hip bag, only this one had an explosive seal tied to the handle. He slightly tore the seal, causing it to catch fire and smoke, which caused the dragon to look completely confused until the blonde threw the kunai at the ceiling with all his might. There was an explosion, causing the cave ceiling to collapse, and huge stones with a characteristic sound fell on the poor dragon's head, thereby knocking it out. Without wasting a second, Naruto cut off his pants so that they would not get in his way, took off his vest and shirt, and ran out of the cave as fast as he could, leaving the dragon unconscious, which, however, did not last long, about 5 minutes. Having woken up, the first thing he did was rub his bump on his head and hissed in pain. What a kid! He hissed in pain. You should have looked at the whole day today. And not just this weather forecast. Naruto ran. He ran without looking back, stumbling over rocks every now and then, but quickly regained his pace and continued his escape. This was all he could do in his situation due to several reasons. Firstly, the tree branches were extremely high, so it was impossible to climb them. Secondly, the blonde did not feel a drop of chakra in himself, as if it had never been there, at all, which is why he lost such opportunities as flying or simply sending chakra through his feet in order to climb a tree. And the third and most important reason was that his body, being seriously rejuvenated, was not yet ready for such heavy loads, although his running at the limit of his strength was risky for him. He could already feel his heart, so small, almost jumping out of his chest. He could feel his lungs almost bursting from such tension and his bare feet bleeding, being torn by sharp stones and branches that came under his feet along the way. But the fear itself, which Naruto had not felt for a long time, that adrenaline combined with the instinct of self-preservation, dulled the pain. He had nowhere to run, because this was not his native world. Because of the forest, the blonde did not even know where he was running, but for him it was better than being torn apart by a dragon. At this pace, Uzumaki, thanks to the incredible endurance of his clan, had been running for about 20 minutes, until he tripped over a stone sticking out of the ground. The result was disastrous. The boy managed to break a couple of toes on his left foot and, apparently, also dislocate his ankle. For an adult, this may be a painless scratch, but for Naruto, who had become a child again, it was hellish pain. Even though he had gotten into such scrapes more than once when he was a child in his past life, his wounds had quickly recovered, not allowing him to dwell on it. After all, Kurama was with him then. Just remembering him brought tears to Uzumaki's eyes. He needed a friend now more than ever. Ku, the boy mentally addressed his subconscious, hoping that he would hear that familiar, grumpy voice of the old nine-tailed fox. But unfortunately, no. There was only silence. In his subconscious there was only him, Naruto. And no one else, He was now absolutely alone in this world, which he himself chose for his second life. Great start! The blonde grinned sarcastically, having already decided to himself that nothing could be worse than at the moment, but as they say, if you jinx it, you'll get it. Despite the fact that Naruto was out of breath, his instincts had not disappeared and were sounding the alarm. Uzumaki's hearing caught someone's roar, which made him hold his breath, which had not fully recovered, and carefully turn around. Oh, the blonde's pupils narrowed and his eyebrows rose. 3 huge saber-toothed tigers with silver-gray striped skins were walking slowly towards him from the bushes. Judging by the saliva flowing from their mouths, they were hungry, as evidenced by their hungry looks directed at Uzumaki. Naruto had already managed to curse Hagoromo with all possible curses for such adventures in the first hours of his second life. He had managed to quarrel with the dragon, dislocate his ankle, and now he was on the verge of becoming a snack for saber-toothed tigers. Totally fucking awesome, nothing to say. So, what should we do? Naruto, without taking his eyes off the predators, who were very slowly walking towards their breakfast, tried to get to his feet, which he managed with difficulty, because his dislocated foot was now responding with pain, excessively strong for Naruto's young body. He began to slowly rummage through his bag, trying to find another kunai with an explosive seal by touch, but nothing was found. Then, one of the tigers went on the offensive. He, starting to growl, abruptly jumped towards Naruto, to which he, out of fear, rolled to the left side, escaping from the claws of the beast. Uzumaki's soul almost jumped out of his body, and out of fear, he took out the first thing he felt in his bag, which fortunately turned out to be a smoke bomb. Having barely taken it out, the blonde threw it at the tiger that tried to attack him, and it broke, forming a smoke screen. Taking advantage of the opportunity, and overcoming the pain in his leg, Naruto began to walk as fast as he could, limping and not running for obvious reasons. He hoped that the tigers would become disoriented or scared from behind the smoke screen and would not be able to attack his trail. Cough cough, Naruto, who had not yet recovered from that run from the dragon, had already gotten tired from a quick walk in 10 minutes. He also moved without looking back, so as not to get distracted and out of fear that those tigers or the dragon would attack him. But alas, his strength was already exhausted, and therefore Naruto's eyesight began to blur, and his legs, or rather the right one, on which he mainly relied, began to give way, and soon he had already fallen, gasping for breath, near the shore of a small lake, which he did not even notice. Cough cough, the boy's whole face was red, he was barely breathing, he was barely even moving. Seeing that lake a meter away from him, he began to crawl towards it, with the last of his strength left. He didn't even notice how he found himself near the water and began to scoop up water in his palms and drink it. The water was clean, cool. As Naruto noticed, he had already gradually restored his breathing and now, while he had the opportunity, began to straighten his leg. It was a little difficult for him, because it was unusually painful, which made him bite his lips so as not to scream, and because he had not completely recovered from that running. So after a few minutes, he had already straightened the dislocation, barely holding back a scream from the pain, so as not to attract local animals like those saber-toothed ones. Moving his leg, and not feeling any pain, except for those broken fingers, Naruto allowed himself to relax. He untied the strap from his hip bag and it fell to the ground. Soon he began to look at what supplies he had left, and in total it turned out to be the following: 5 ordinary kunai and 1 with an explosive seal, about 10 more shuriken, 3 food pills, 1 of which he swallowed in an instant and washed down with water from the lake, and finally 1 more smoke bomb. Yeah, not too rich a supply. With these words he took out 1 ordinary and 1 with an explosive seal kunai, and tied the bag back to his pants. Suddenly he heard rustling from the direction he was running from, and a familiar growl still came out. Naruto snorted in disappointment, and the tigers, this time only 2, were already walking towards Naruto, intending to tear him to pieces. In his head, Naruto, despite the fear, which however was not disturbing him now as a few minutes earlier, had already thought over further actions that would help him. To begin with, Naruto got into a fighting stance, it is not clear why, putting the kunai with the seal forward, and the ordinary one, being in his left hand, he hid behind his back. Meanwhile, one of the tigers, from the duet, repeated the actions of his brother, also jumped on the boy, but he rolled again, dodging him. The other one also joined the hunt, ran at Naruto at the limit of his speed, intending to tear him apart with his claws. Here Naruto almost panicked and barely managed to jump away from the claws of the beast, but it managed to bite him on the back. But fortunately not deeply, otherwise for Uzumaki everything would have ended now. Hissing in pain, the boy still did not take his eyes off the saber-toothed ones. He needed to not make a mistake now, otherwise his second life would end before it had time to really begin. They need to be close, otherwise it won't work. Meanwhile the first tiger went on the offensive again. Now Naruto didn't hide his other kunai. And now the tiger slashed with his claws again, trying to inflict wounds on the boy, as he rolled again, but already suicidal close to the tiger, and without wasting a second, he slashed with a kunai across his face, cutting his nose and left eye. From this the beast howled in pain and began to overflow with rage. He now began to blindly rush at Naruto, and he had to sweat a little, also dodging and striking with a kunai. Thank God, due to the pill his strength and agility temporarily increased, so that Naruto can now exceed the threshold of his body's capabilities at the moment. And the other tiger, unlike his wounded and angry brother, attacked only rarely, when Naruto slowed down and was not far from him. Several minutes passed at this pace, and Naruto, who was still under the effect of the pill, was already starting to get tired. Although the tigers were not particularly cheerful either, their attacks became less frequent. They were already getting tired and, what was important, they were staying closer to each other, although this was mainly not so much due to fatigue, but because of the first tiger's wounds. Naruto managed to beat him up pretty good, which caused him to lose a fair amount of blood. His entire face was cut up, the tiger's left eye was already gone, and there were 3 stab wounds in his side from which burgundy blood was oozing. It's time. Naruto gripped the explosive kunai tighter, not letting go of the regular kunai. He grabbed not the handle of the explosive kunai, but the seal and bit it sharply, and it began to light up and hiss like a fuse from a firework. Meanwhile, the saber-toothed tigers were preparing to attack again, as evidenced by the fact that they were scratching the ground with their claws and growling, showing their anger towards the boy. And now, the moment has come. And the stakes are absolutely unacceptable now. Now the attack of such fast animals as tigers, before Naruto's eyes, was as if in slow motion. Here they jumped, gaping their mouths and releasing the claws from their paws at full length. Here the seal attached to the kunai has already begun to glow with a bright light, and Naruto sticks the kunai with it to the place where he stood and abruptly jumps into the water, holding his breath beforehand. And BBH. Even being in the water, Naruto heard the explosion from his seal and felt vibrations due to the fact that the explosion was close to the shore and from the fact that something sank into the water. But what exactly, Naruto could not see, because his eyes were closed, but he had already begun to float to the surface. Cough cough. Naruto tried to catch his breath and climbed out onto the shore, or rather onto a small crater formed by the seal explosion. Smoke was coming from it, and the ground was hot and framed with blood and the burnt paw of one of the saber-toothed tigers. This made the blonde turn back to the lake, and what he saw almost made him sick. On the surface of the water, a torn and burnt carcass of a saber-toothed tiger was floating, its skin completely burned out, and its head was not visible. So, where's the second? He didn't have to look for long. He was lying 2 meters to the right of the crater, and, unlike his brother, he was alive. But not for long, judging by the blood loss from those stab wounds inflicted by the kunai, and by those extensive burns all over his body that caused excruciating pain to the beast. Naruto, taking another kunai out of his bag, began to slowly walk towards him for completely understandable reasons. Well then, the boy knelt down near the tiger's head and pointed the blade of the kunai at its neck, gathering his strength to stick it in. Even though these animals tried to eat him, it wasn't their fault, because they were just hunting to feed themselves. As the saying goes, the strongest survives. Sorry. And the deed was done. He stuck the kunai into the tiger's neck and at first he screamed in pain, then began to wheeze because he couldn't breathe, because his throat was now clogged with blood, but after a few minutes everything stopped. The tiger stopped wheezing, the blood from his wounds stopped flowing, his heart stopped. He died. Naruto was in no hurry to extract the kunai from the beast's corpse. His hands and his whole body were shaking now. He had killed the enemy. He had committed murder. Even if it was for his own survival, and also as a sign of mercy, because he would have died anyway. But that was not important. What was important was what he felt now, and now he was sick of the whole whirlpool of emotions that was spinning in his head. His head was already spinning from the smell of blood, and his hands began to shake more. His body was not ready for such stress, not so much physical as psychological. How many more problems could reincarnation bring? But let's get back to Naruto. His stomach couldn't handle it, but he didn't throw up. After all, the boy hadn't had a single crumb of anything edible in his mouth today, except for that pill, the effect of which was supposed to end any minute. We need to find something to eat, Naruto said to himself, and decided to go into the forest, when another person appeared, whom the boy had forgotten about due to circumstances. There were 3 of those tigers, and the third one didn't run away. He just fell behind them. And now he was standing right in front of him, looking with his amber eyes with narrow cat pupils straight into the dark blue eyes of the blonde, whose pupils had narrowed to their minimum size literally in a second from realizing his situation. Really? Is this the end? He was already panicking. There was no way out now. He was already a corpse. He could already feel the tiger's claws piercing his chest, causing Naruto pain that he couldn't do anything about. The only thing he could do now was close his eyes so as not to see his death coming so soon. Then the tiger removed its paw in order to deliver a full blow and take the life of its prey, so that he could finally eat today. I don't think so. The blonde's eyes opened in horror. He heard the voice of that dragon. It hung in the air flapping its wings, and its paw glowed with a black light, which Naruto did not understand until he looked at the tiger, who in fact, as a few days ago, should have struck. And indeed, the tiger's hand froze, although it was shaking, which indicated that it was trying to resist, although it was useless. Then the dragon moved its paw upward and the tiger, as if by magic, flew into the air and approached the dragon's muzzle. So, Sabertooth the Grey, and 3 of them. You know how to find adventures for your ass, boy. The dragon grinned and twirled his index finger, forcing the tiger to spin. 5 minutes later, the dragon was already bored of torturing the beast, who already wanted to vomit the contents of his stomach, and therefore decided to finish him off. He moved his hand as if throwing something, and the tiger began to fly far, far away, certainly out of sight for Naruto, but definitely not for the dragon. Damn! A meter short of a new record. The dragon waved his hand in frustration and began to descend towards the boy, who in the meantime lay motionless from the pain in his chest. Of course, the dragon's gaze did not make this go away, and he pointed his claw at the boy's wound, to which he no longer reacted. Then Naruto's entire body began to be covered in a black aura, to which he was about to run away, when, "Don't move, fool, let me help you." The aura began to glow brighter and brighter until it flared up, causing Uzumaki to close his eyes, fearing the worst. And Naruto was amazed. All the pain he had felt moments earlier was gone. His broken toes on his left foot had healed. His back and chest no longer hurt from the blows from the tigers. He was definitely alive, so he allowed his eyes to open. He was amazed again. His wounds were gone, not just the pain as it seemed at first. After examining himself for damage and not noticing anything, he raised his head towards the dragon, who was smiling proudly, definitely knowing that he had amazed the child with this restoration. Naruto himself felt awkward. Thank you, Naruto chuckled nervously, to which the dragon chuckled back. You're welcome. And now, I think we can begin our conversation? To be continued. P.S. I wrote on a tablet, which may cause errors in the text. Comment on total. This technique, as well as the character Fuma Erasure, are not fictional. They appeared in the filler arc, Searching for Sasuke. In the last chapter, Naruto felt almost nothing because of Temari's death and his own death. I just came up with the idea of being deprived of emotions when going to the afterlife. And when returning, the following effect occurs: emotional outbursts, which can be either unimaginable joy or a desire to die from the weight of some emotions. So, without flooding like, "Why is your Naruto a crybaby? He seemed to cry in the last chapter." After some time. City X. Fiore, the mayor's residence. Oh fuck! A half-empty bottle of wine shatters the window of the luxuriously furnished office of the mayor of one of the cities of the kingdom of Fiora. And the people who were on the street didn't care. The mayor didn't care about them, just like they didn't care about him, until it was time to pay taxes. And it seems that this was not the first time the mayor had such a start to the day, and it is unlikely to be the last, although who knows. And the balding, bearded fat man himself, dressed only in a luxurious blue velvet robe, began to rummage around in his desk, looking for hangover pills. In general, he was looking for Zorex. But it is unlikely that it exists in this world, and why the hell are they doing in the desk of this pot-bellied corruption in a robe? Having found it, he immediately swallowed it, washing it down with water from a decanter. The mayor's wrinkles smoothed out, and a slight smile appeared on his face. But then he heard a knock on the door. "What do you want?" The mayor's tone was already oozing irritation, although the day was just beginning. But in response he heard another knock on the door, which made the mayor start to get a little angry. "Come in already." After that, the knocks on the door stopped and a young woman with short brown hair, dressed in business attire and with rectangular glasses on her nose, entered the office. Her whole appearance emphasized that she was just a strict worker, and not someone else. "Mr. Mayor." The woman bowed slightly to the mayor, who was already sitting at his desk, not paying attention to the fact that he was still in his robe. "You have a visitor." "Who's coming here at such an early hour?" snorted the fat man, scratching his thick beard. "No. Tell him to come later. In about a week." "But sir, I don't care who he is." He slammed his palm on the table, showing his unwillingness to receive visitors. "If this idiot values his life and freedom, then believe me, he will not distract me from my written work." How do you say?" The woman decided to leave with a slightly trembling voice, afraid that if she continued on her way she might also lose her job. And here, peace again. A smile appeared on the face of this noble man. "That's the point of ruling this city. Sign a couple of papers, make agreements with the right people, and that's it. Enjoy your power, albeit small of course, but also the money of course that flows into his pockets, as a gift from the right people who do not want to end up in the wrong place, as well as from those slackers who live in this city." Life is beautiful, he thought, and decided that since the hangover cure did its job, it was time for a very expensive red wine to do its job. But then, again those knocks on the door. What the hell? The fat man clenched his fists and was about to start banging his head on the table, or banging this visitor on the table. "What else do you want, Misaraji?" "Sir, that visitor. Let me do it myself." This voice sent shivers down the mayor's spine, and the desire to drink wine changed to the desire to evaporate, as evidenced by his pale skin. How he regretted getting involved with this mercenary. Soon, this same mercenary simply walked through the door as if it was just a mirage or an illusion. This made the fat man turn even paler. "Well, hello, Mr. Mayor," said a young, almost boyish voice, in which one could hear sarcasm and slight arrogance towards the fat man, and the voice was as cold as ice or steel. Good afternoon, Mr. N." He shrank back into his chair in fear, to which this N came closer to the mayor. "You don't wish me a good day, but rather death, or at least that I just—" Oh yes, the expression on the fat man's face was unforgettable. Fear, horror, anger, coupled with a shudder and a smile like, "I am the kindest creature on the planet, dedicated to the Dumbledores and APWB Dumbledore in particular." This unknown person saw right through him and, perhaps even worse, could read his mind. Because of this insight, the mayor was afraid of him. Self-confidence combined with lust for power in this regard played a cruel joke on him. "Well, no. What are you saying?" The fat man turned his neck negatively, trying to get rid of the fear towards this man, reminding himself that he was a mercenary, and not some competitor for the post of mayor. And yet, remembering that completion of his order 1 year ago. It was dark in City X. Absolutely dark, not a single light was on in the window. All the residents were asleep, except for their fat mayor, who was sitting at his desk in his office. Although he was not doing any paperwork, he was just sitting with his chin resting on his clasped hands. He was waiting for that mercenary N to return. And he did not care why he was called N, he was worried about the result of his order. That drug dealer, his old friend, had completely lost his mind and did not understand who he was dealing with. Not only had he stopped giving gifts from the heart, but he had also started threatening to expose all his dealings, from bribery to cooperation with dark guilds and practically the entire criminal world of Fiori. So he would have to send his old friend into lifelong peace. And for this, one of the best mercenaries was needed, since Raoul, due to his business and agreements, had powerful security, and he did not need a person from the light guilds, because he could spare Raoul, and do everything so that he would end up behind bars. And here is luck. The person he needed arrived in the city, or as others called him, the Unknown. A mercenary of great talent, as he was called in different circles, but at the same time a dangerous person, with whom one should not joke. And in some way, the mayor felt it. The voice of this mercenary seemed childish, as if this mercenary was only 12 years old, but the clearly perceptible ice in this childish voice, combined with unthinkable insight, did not allow him to think about it, but made him afraid, which was strange. He had never been afraid of mercenaries, because he knew that they were lone people who only needed money, which was nothing compared to him. But here everything was different. He felt that he himself was a nonentity, compared to N. Just one conversation, and that was to discuss the order and such a result. Thump thump thump, the mayor mumbled, tapping his fingers on the table, to the sounds of the banging on the table. Usually, when he was waiting, he waited in comfort, drinking a few glasses of wine, without a snack, but considering the fact that his future career, and in the case of N, his life, depended on this liquidation, he preferred to engage in this useless activity. Soon the mayor began to shiver. He suddenly felt cold, as if the wind was blowing at his back. He had already started to turn around in order to close the window, but suddenly froze. He had not opened the window all day, although it was a very hot day. "It's done!" A cold child's voice whispered from behind, causing the fat man to almost jump in shock and turn around sharply. There was no one there. "Why, you're here?" Having barely managed to cope with the shock, he began to speak slowly, looking around, hoping to find the source of the voice, but for some time, the answer was silence. Boom! With a dull sound, something fell to the floor. Turning his head in the direction of the sound, the mayor looked in shock at the battered long-haired man, whose scratched face was clearly visible in the moonlight. "I think there's no need for comments." He emerged from the darkness that the moonlight couldn't reach, a man of average height, dressed in all black, from his boots to his hooded cloak, in which absolutely nothing was visible. The mayor swallowed nervously from excitement, shifting his gaze from the drug dealer groaning in pain to the mercenary. "Gee, glad to see that everything ended well." The mayor tried to force a smile, trying to diffuse the atmosphere of coldness and fear in his office, which, however, he did not really succeed in, judging by the barely audible from under the hood. "Not everything ended as well as I wanted." At these words, the beaten man began to rise like a puppet, and everything would have been fine, but his feet did not touch the floor. "I decided that it was worth bringing him to you so that you could be a witness." "A witness of what?" The fat man was already afraid to find out the answer, because perhaps soon, depending on what he would see, he might have to part with his dinner, either from vomiting, or from a more disgusting and stinking action. "Why, your own worthlessness." A cough cough. Damn, traitor." The drug dealer spoke these words through pain, saturated with hatred and contempt towards the fat man, who quickly turned white, like the moon, which was now illuminating what was happening here. What are you talking about?" The mayor tried his best to hold back the trembling throughout his body, hiding the fear and despair in his voice, covering them up with righteous anger. "This is the most interesting thing. When I arrived at the camp, where he was, by the way, arranging a deal to transport several kilograms of drugs across the border of the Arboles Empire, he began to mention you. That you would be able to provide everything necessary for the success of the operation, or this Raoul would reveal all your deeds to the government." With each word of the mercenary, the pupils of the fat man's brown eyes became smaller and smaller, while N was already giving off a cold feeling. "I hope you remember one of the main conditions of our agreement: no criminal connections, otherwise you may regret many things, including the fact that you were born." The mayor could not doubt the latter, it is unclear why, but instead of objecting, he simply began to nod his head. From what was happening, even Raoul gulped air. So, if you did not tell me something, better confess now and maybe you will stay alive. Here it is. The point of no return. The moment after which there is no turning back. And now the mayor had this point in mind: reveal the truth and then it's the end for him, or prison for life, or lie, and then he'll just win a few years of freedom or, incredibly, lose nothing. And that's worth a lot. So 3, 2, 1. Still, one could envy his determination to keep all his wealth, which he had amassed, albeit not the most honest, but with labor. His skin was acquiring a healthy color, and blood vessels were popping out on his forehead. Mr. N, I remember all the terms of the concluded agreement very well. Yes, I may not be the most noble mayor and think more about profit, but I was not going to stoop so low. And if you doubt it, then get lost. Since the agreement, in your opinion, was violated. After this, an atmosphere of silence hung in the office, interrupted by Raoul's grinding teeth. What the hell are you doing? You're stuffing your belly with worse things than mine. The drug dealer started yelling at the whole building in anger, and God only knows how no one heard him. He would have continued yelling if N hadn't raised his left hand and squeezed it, which stopped Raoul's verbal barrage because he was suffocating and his neck would have been broken by an invisible hand. This once again made the fat man gulp in fear. Let's not quarrel, gentlemen. Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'll take your word for it. For now the gaze of the eyes, invisible to either the mayor or Raoul, turned towards the latter. And now, Raoul. Forgive me, nothing personal. With these words, the mercenary came closer to him and placed his palm on his head. At first, nothing happened, but soon. And no need, the drug dealer's eyes were so wide that it seemed as if they were about to pop out of their sockets, and drool was streaming from his mouth. When N finished and removed his hand, Raoul fell face down on the floor. Still drooling. What did you do to him? What he saw made the fat man shrink back into his chair and thank God that he didn't shit himself. I just erased all the data from his brain except for the basic functions so he wouldn't die. Basically, he's a vegetable for the rest of his life, he said in a menacing tone, and flapping his cape like bat wings he disappeared, leaving the mayor alone with the drooling vegetable man on the carpet, and yet more thanks to the Almighty for paying him in advance. He couldn't be around him any longer. Maybe that's enough memories? A quiet, icy voice instantly tore the mayor away from his memories and made him focus on reality. Although if you're remembering our first case, then that's right. I conducted my own investigation into Raoul Presta's drug business and N made a long pause, reaching maximum tension in the office. Discovered that his right hand, now the new leader of the drug cartel, Bosco Amabo, is making a deal today. In the city? Why? In fact, he knew why. He needed it to transport drugs to a neighboring country. It provided an alibi and cover, and they got a percentage of the sales. Plus, here, he could still make a couple of deals. It's hard to say. I didn't pursue them every day, it just seemed to me that such a good mayor as you needs an end to the drug trade of the Raoul, now Boscov Mafia. Then why not? Especially for free. Well. The fat man mumbled and made hand gestures, trying to find the words to refuse all this. But at the same time he understood, this way he would expose himself. This fatso is anyone, but not an absolutely brainless moron. And yet, nothing. Well, okay. Since we started, then finish. At these words N only nodded weakly and abruptly disappeared, leaving the mayor alone with his fears and thoughts that he had made a catastrophic mistake in his life by using the services of this mercenary. As soon as although Naruto did not find himself in the shelter, he could hardly contain his laughter, for which he pressed his palm to his mouth. Still, he did not want to wake Kagura, who was still sleeping. The morning was early. Just in case, Naruto went into a small room, where a girl with long black hair tied with a snow-white ribbon, the ends of which were directed upwards, was sleeping on the bed, wrapped under a blanket. This companion appeared, in a rather unusual second life, just like in the first life of the restless Uzumaki, under rather sad circumstances. Flashback 3 years ago. There is nothing better than summer nights. It is warm, crickets chirp and fly around like stars that have descended from the sky, and the full moon along with the stars illuminates the way so as not to get lost in the darkness of the night. This could not go unnoticed by a boy running at great speed, or to be honest, an adult living a second life in the body of a child. Although thanks to a certain dragon, he became quite eccentric and active, which seemed to match his body. But in this stream of activity there was hidden sadness, bitterness and pain, which, although it had diminished over the years, in addition, his killer instincts had stabilized. Acnologia increased these years for intensive training, so it's hard to tell how old his current physical shell is, 10 or 6, as it should have been in reality, if the dragon hadn't warped the space-time continuum for the sake of his second student, and not out of the kindness of his heart, but because of not entirely sweet circumstances, which Acne kept silent about, although the blonde got him with questions about it. But that's another story, which doesn't matter because he's just walking through the clearing, Naruto thought. But his mood instantly worsened, from the realization that something not the best would happen today, since his mind, now connected to the space-time continuum, was still too weak to see voluminous and absolutely accurate visions. But Naruto could understand the essence of visions. What would happen would not be the most pleasant, but unfortunately a recorded event that could not be cancelled. But there would be survivors. And Naruto could not help them. After a few minutes of fairly fast running, Naruto, judging by the huge column of smoke that was visible to his eyes, was close, and this made the blonde stop from a small stupor. Some of his visions have the ability to repeat themselves, or to be more precise, to show what is happening a minute later, albeit in somewhat muddy tones or as if the image is in some kind of funnel. And now, he vaguely saw smoke, fire, heard screams that were definitely children's and also evil laughter, belonging to those who arranged all this, and screams and hysteria of other adults. At this point, the vision ended, not because that was all, but because of the unwillingness to see further, albeit in a vague sense. All the same, he could not change it, and would not have been able to at all. So, Databeo. Intrigue, intrigue and more intrigue. Don't intrigue me, reality. Gradually Naruto was able to gather himself and concentrate, after which he hurried on, but at his usual speed, without adjusting the space to himself. Naruto had been running for about 5 minutes before his ears opened to the hissing of fire and screams, but not as loud as they should have been. It means he was on time. The main thing died down, but there were still survivors. This inability to change events was irritating, but alas, Naruto could not do anything about it. Because he felt it with his mind and especially his heart, and there was such a feeling that it would be better if there were 2 of them. But omitting his feelings, Uzumaki switched to what was happening, which he did not like at all. All 10 houses of this village of Rosemary, to be exact, were broken, and many were also burned. No wonder. There is no reason for slaves to return home. The survivors, mostly adults, screamed hysterically, shouting the names of their children, even though they knew they were either dead or kidnapped by these bastards. Naruto's palms involuntarily clenched into fists from all this, and if Ku were inside him, he would have exploded in rage. But then his insides quickly calmed down and suddenly sensed, in addition to the adults and the few children who were with them, there were other sources of life nearby. 5 people. Quietly laughing. Some of those who created what was happening today. Beasts. Naruto caught a glimpse of one and an even larger tree branch, right above him. What luck for the blonde, of course, but definitely not for the bandit. Naruto suddenly disappeared, and a second later he was already standing on the very branch under which the bandit stood. He was about to go, but the subsequent actions cruelly and forever interrupted. From under Naruto's sleeve, like a snake, a very thin kunai began to crawl out, which, nevertheless, was of good size and had 2 side blades that were rounded, which made them look like hooks. A chain was attached to the ring of the handle, although these were more likely blades. This harpoon, carefully without rattling, began to go down and sharply wrap the entire neck of the bandit, but not yet cutting his throat, but squeezing it tightly so that he did not scream. Die! Naruto, making sure that the harpoon, controlled by telekinesis, had a good grip on his neck so that he wouldn't fall, jumped down while the bandit's mortal body rose up, along with his soul, which had gone to purgatory the moment his cervical vertebrae couldn't bear the weight. Without giving the corpse a glance, Uzumaki telekinetically turned the chain so that the blades were already digging into the neck of the dead body. With a mental command, Naruto called the harpoon back, not paying attention to the blood pouring out like a fountain, and to the fallen headless carcass, whose head rolled into the bushes. "Who the F.K. is here?" Another bandit heard the rustling. He began to quickly walk in the direction of what happened, while Naruto disappeared again. "What the fuck? Fuck Ramon." A black man of the same height as the corpse, taking into account the head, only of a more compact build, was now looking in horror at the decapitated body lying on the blood-spattered grass. "Damn. Damn. Damn. A real devil." A quiet, cold voice simultaneously triggered the black man's instinct for self-preservation and his readiness to kill. As a result, he unhooked a small dagger from his belt and swung it back, but ended up driving it into a tree. "Why, you're..." The bandit tried to get the dagger back in horror, but the fear that made him put a lot of strength into the blow did not give him the strength to get the dagger back. A minute of intense attempts to pull his weapon out of the tree did not give the black man any results. But for Naruto, who was in a state of icy rage, this gave the perfect result for a surprise blow. A blow with telekinesis. While the bandit, still whimpering from fear, tried to get the dagger, Naruto, who was standing behind him, extended his hand, which was glowing with a bluish light forward. Arg! The bandit, literally lifted by something invisible, first rose a little into the air, and then abruptly slammed his back into a tree without the ability to move, and in addition, broke his arm, which was holding on with all his might to the dagger stuck in the same tree. He, overcoming the pain, began to look around and at the same time began to try to free himself, but his body seemed to have turned to stone, and his right arm, broken at the bend, also ached from pain. Soon a completely black silhouette appeared before his eyes, whose eyes were hidden by a hood the black man could not see, but even so, he could not utter a sound. His mind literally froze, from horror and fear, unknown, as if the brain simply considered this man in black his nightmare or even worse, death. "Well, hello," in Naruto's voice, cheerful, active and quite young, the first 2 points disappeared without a trace, replaced by coldness and calm, but in this calm even a dumb person could hear far from friendly notes. "I hope your hand doesn't hurt too much?" From this, sweat began to appear on the bandit's face. "That you are not talkative. And I really even need a dialogue with you right now." Before the bandit could say anything, he winced in pain from a strong blow to the solar plexus. "No swearing. No snot. No secrets. That's what I ask. If you break it, you die. If you do what I ask, the gravity of what happened will determine your and your comrades' fate, although I'm surprised they didn't pay attention to your screams. But it doesn't matter. First, tell me your name." He wasn't joking, the black man realized. There was no point in lying, and pomposity, arrogance and anger, like cowardly jackals, hid in his not-so-pure soul. "Caesar be but my friend call me Caesar. I'm not your friend and I certainly won't become one." Naruto sighed slightly and continued. "And now, tell me, Caesar, what were you doing here? Why do I see crying mothers and grief-stricken fathers and old men near the ruins now, and only 3 or 4 children? Speak!" Merg. Kgh. Arg. Naruto, who had lost all respect for this already whining nonentity, hit him in the solar plexus with even greater force, causing him to spit out blood this time. I'll tell you. We were given a task. To take all the children aged 10 and over from this village. As payment we were given 200,000 precious and, we were given the go-ahead to plunder the village. Why? Naruto actually had some thoughts about why they needed children, but he hoped that it was not what he thought. To build some kind of B-tower. That's all. That's all I know. Naruto's anger grew even more. Alas, he was right. These bastards needed children as free slave labor, who would be disposed of if the benefit was exhausted. He had heard rumors about the mysterious tower more than once, but he didn't know where it was. He had also heard about repeated kidnappings of children and occasionally adults. Now all the puzzles fit together into a single picture. And this picture did not please Uzumaki at all. So, you, for the sake of money, took their children from their parents, broke their hearts, deprived them of the meaning of life and robbed them. As Uzumaki uttered each word, the poor guy, whose fate was already predetermined, felt his insides clench, and his not-so-pleasant life began to flash before his eyes. Do you understand that killing all of you is not enough? That you are heartless creatures? Or should I check? With these words, the dagger finally came loose from the wood, and the hand that was still holding it stretched forward, causing pain to its owner. Ignoring his sobs, Naruto telekinetically forced the hand that held the dagger in a stone grip to approach his chest so that the tip of the blade stopped where, according to anatomy, the heart should be. At this time, it began to beat faster and faster, while Naruto remained silent and stood like a statue. Now tell me, did you regret it? He asked, collecting his thoughts. At this, the bandit began to whine even louder, but not from remorse or sincere sympathy, but from stupid fear for his life, but something did not allow him to lie. And no, I didn't regret it, he muttered, in a quiet voice that was barely louder than a whisper, and soon closed his eyes. That's what I thought. Naruto's voice showed a hint of sadness and regret for just a moment, for foolishly hoping for a positive answer. Then I'll try not to regret it. Abruptly, the dagger entered the chest up to the hilt, while the screams of the bandit were heard by the entire forest, not paying attention to the blood filling his body incorrectly, but feeling as if hot iron was pouring into his heart, which, despite the fact that it was pierced, missed the blow. Argh. A new scream erupted from the fact that the dagger continued to descend, cutting through the liver and stomach, stopping right at the large intestine. Somehow, but life did not leave this body, barely grimacing from agony due to telekinesis, although the heart was no longer working. Naruto, slightly surprised, approached him and put his hand on his forehead, and he, opening his eyes wide, began to sharply inhale air, and then everything stopped. He simply hung like a rag doll, looking with glass eyes at his killer. To this Naruto freed the corpse from telekinesis, and it fell face down on the grass, freeing the blonde from this frozen horror in the dead eyes of a victim, albeit far from innocent. Even though Naruto's body's psyche had almost stabilized to the level he had in his past life, he did not like to kill, both then and now. But at the same time, if Uzumaki saw that someone deserved to die, his actions always became merciless. The adults who were near the ruins and the remaining 3 bandits were already hurrying here. Fortunately, they did not possess magic, so let the parents arrange a fair lynching. And it was time for him to go, because now his participation in this event was indirectly recorded. He was about to teleport, but suddenly stopped, because his hearing caught a heartbeat near the already burnt-out house. The heartbeat was definitely a child's, considering how quickly it was beating from shock. Perhaps this child hid from the bandits, and does not know that everything is already over. He should help him and return him to his parents. So, speeding up his run, Naruto, using his hearing, quickly found the source of the heartbeat, a wooden box with a removable lid, inside of which there was someone. Coming closer, Naruto already tried to take control of his emotions and knock knock knock. He knocked and began to pronounce it, trying to make the tone of his voice quite cheerful, which he succeeded in quite well. Inside the box, at first there was a sigh, exactly like a girl's, but then silence. It seemed that the one who was hiding there covered her mouth with her palms. Knock knock knock. Silence was the answer again. Hey, hello? You know, it's impolite. Usually, you have to ask, who's there? Maybe I'm some kind of postman or a doctor. What's wrong? It's all over, the bad guys have left, and those who haven't, their parents will punish them now. Fidgeting could already be heard inside the box, as if the girl was in doubt. That's it. I'm offended, and if you don't get out now, I'm going to cry. If Kurama were inside him, he would laugh at Naruto until the end of time. Already at this, the rustling became louder, and the girl began to get out. Uzumaki's attention was presented with a small girl, half a head shorter than him, with large hazel eyes and long black hair, tied with a snow-white ribbon, the ends of which are directed upwards, in a white, slightly torn t-shirt with a collar like a shirt. Oh, you didn't let me cry after all, thank you. He smiled at the girl, his signature 32-tooth smile, which made her a little embarrassed, but without a word she squatted down in the box and started crying. Hey. What's wrong? Am I so scary? Naruto's right eye started twitching. Well, I'm not some kind of toothy dragon. Although I am toothy, of course, but I'm definitely not some kind of bogeyman. P. What? Hello? Sorry? Bye. Fart? Of course, I have a lot of time, but I want to help as FEERP possible, of course. Uzumaki understood that she would mumble all sorts of things from shock, but nothing could hurt. So, friend, please tell me, what is your name? Y. Kaka? Wahaike Kaha? Oh, damn. Forgive me my impatient tongue, but, coming closer to the girl, he touched her temples with his index and middle fingers and closed his eye, which the girl soon did involuntarily. A minute later, Naruto opened his eyes, but the girl was still standing with them closed. So, we got rid of the shock. Although it would be easier to get into your memories, but it is far from aesthetic and too impolite. So, hey, are you okay? He lightly tapped her forehead with his fingers and she opened her eyes. Her face became sadder than moments before, but now she was not trembling and was somewhat calmer. I'm fine, the girl almost whispered, but Naruto heard her. I believed it. But what is your name anyway? Just don't tell me that your name is really Kaka. The blonde tried to defuse the situation with a joke, which didn't work out very well, although the girl let out a small laugh. Kagura. And my name is Kagura. A good name, a good one. That was their name. Oh well. The main thing is that it's all over, the bad guys are gone and won't come back. So, let me take you to your parents. I don't have parents, the girl said in a calm voice, making Naruto stand there in a stupor for a couple of seconds. What? What about? Then maybe to Grandma, Grandpa. You are alone? Yes. Now yes, tears began to flow from his eyes again, and Naruto was already cursing himself for not looking at the memories. And now he was touching Kagura where it hurt. They killed your parents? And no. Brother. Simon. Now she began to cry even harder and bitterness began to overwhelm her more than before. Naruto was able to calm her down. He was already angry at himself, because he had not thought about reading the girl's thoughts, and now he was pressing on her sore spot, risking breaking her fragile psyche, and because of these rules, the violation of which would lead to catastrophic consequences. While he was thinking about these things, he was surprised when he discovered that Kagura was hugging him, resting her face on his shoulder. Calm down, Shush. Uzumaki began to stroke the girl's hair. Don't worry, everything will be fine, I promise. I promise. Initially, Naruto wanted to give Kagura to an orphanage, knowing full well that his life as a mercenary and a vagabond without a permanent home could be a burden to her. But when he almost did it, her pitiful and sad look could not help but touch the boy's heart, even despite her adult soul. So she became his companion, a student in some things and simply his best friend, although the relationship between them had the risk of moving on to something more. Flashback 3 years ago. The end. ERHHH. She yawned loudly, already starting to wake up, while Naruto began to work in the kitchen so that they could have breakfast. After about 30 minutes, Kagura quickly changed out of her pajamas, into her gray sleeveless shirt and a skirt of the same color, and went to the kitchen where he was finishing frying eggs with bacon and heating up the kettle. Oh. Good morning, Kagura. Uzumaki smiled at his friend, while she, smiling back, sat down at the table, and telekinetically summoned a plate and a fork with a knife. During their travels, she discovered her magic, which was gravity, so Naruto began to train her in the use of telekinesis and some waiting spells, which she grasped on the fly, as well as fencing, which she learned accepting the fact that the magical energy inside her body, although replenished and powerful, is not endless, as her blonde companion told her. Best regards, Naruto-kun. He responded by telekinetically sending half of the whole omelet and a piece of bread onto her plate, and simply putting it aside for himself using a kitchen spatula, and sat down at the table himself. So? How's that fat guy doing? Didn't he shit himself when he saw you? Naruto almost choked on a piece of fried egg from laughter, while Kagura herself chuckled, remembering how this mayor was described. Hee. He's ready to jump off the mountain so as not to get caught by me. But this is not a mistake, it's not a mistake, Naruto just stuffed his mouth with food here, then I'll teach him a lesson once and for all. Well, for now, I need to get ready. Is it time to leave already? The question was rhetorical. Of course it is. Tomorrow evening we'll head towards the Principality of Veronica, find a job there, temporary housing, and then we'll see. So, you should pack all your things. Don't worry, I'll do everything. Kagura had already finished her meal. And you? Now I'll get ready too. After all, I've already been given an advance payment for clearing out the Amabo drug cartel. The rest I'll pick up in a week from the authorities in Magnolia. So, 100,000 now, 200,000 later. Not bad. But how did you? Oh yeah, rumors always spread at the speed of light. The very next day everyone will be chatting about several things. The Bosco Amabo drug cartel ceased to exist due to the mysterious N. The mayor of City X went crazy and began to think of himself as a chicken. And blah 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 and blah blah. Heh, that's true, but knowing you probably took precautions? Kagura narrowed her eyes at him with a sly grin, to which he made a face in the style of, "Who do you take me for?" "Don't take me for an idiot, Ms. Mikazuchi, Data Bail. I just bought a memory sphere the size of a bead, so the authorities will definitely have the records." "And how will you act? What if they don't like how you act?" "Well, I don't know. Naruto put his hand to his chin, pretending to think. "First I'll try to joke, then I'll start talking, and then maybe I'll get a bloodbath with Mokilev. We'll see in general. Just we'll see. To be continued. Not yet finished. Comment after some time. Sorry that there was no chapter for so long. I'll try not to delay any longer. Now I'm already taking up LU 600 years, and then the power of 2 and then Protocol 13_97. I haven't abandoned the transition, but I don't write much since my attitude to the canon has been spoiled by the creator of this canon himself. I won't be surprised if many are in the subject. I hope no one has forgotten about the time funnel known from BK. Fixed points in time are moments in the space-time continuum at which events have been fixed, meaning they cannot be rewritten or changed. Cleaning. Part 1 City X. Misery Lost. Abandoned area of City X. Misery Lost is a small piece of territory where after an epidemic of an unknown disease, and then burning to destroy this disease, no one lived anymore, except for homeless people, drug addicts and small robbers who pitched their tents to somehow survive on the street. But now, due to the protectorate of the mayor, for a short period of time, an unknown caravan settled here, which instantly occupied almost the entire territory. No one, except for a few people, had any idea what kind of caravan it was and for what purpose it stopped here. It is not surprising, because the mayor, for the sake of money, did everything to hide all the information about this caravan. It was the drug cartel of Bosco Amabo. In the past the right hand of Raul Prester, now the leader of his criminal empire, which is actively engaged in the sale of drugs and sponsoring some dark guilds, in exchange for a percentage of contracts, as well as protection from certain enemies. Unlike his boss, who, although he was a pretty smart businessman and had an unusually good business acumen and a sense of profit, but unfortunately, was also a complete scum without honor and dignity, and also had a rather hot-tempered, impatient, and sometimes completely impatient character, which attracted the fact that the same mayor of City X, thanks to his connections, put an end to him. Bosco was distinguished by greater caution and intelligence. He did not commit such things as the destruction of the village of Rosemary, for which Raul became infamous in dark circles, and did not conduct drug sales operations without careful preparation, without the exact certainty that no one would attack their trail. Due to this, he was able to stabilize the income, which in Raul's time, although high, did not have clear stability, and it happened that it simply went to bribes to the authorities so that they would not reveal them. Also, Amabo refused to sell slaves or capture homeless people or orphans to turn into slaves, because of the same Rosemary devastation. Although contracts from the same customers still come to him. Now he and his men were here. Back in this damned city, which was like a beautiful wrapper that covered up all the shit that was in it. This quarter, the corruption and prostitution in the richer parts of the city, this mayor, in general, you can go on forever. But it was not worth thinking about now. Soon their old business partner from the borders of the Alvarez Empire should arrive, which promised a good deal from which they would get a big jackpot, and such deals are rare these days. So a little work and that's it, just a couple of % to this miser who ran this hole, and the deal is in the bag. Everything would have been fine, but the man's soul was extremely uneasy. Today there were two unpleasant events in his life. This was the fall of Raoul, who, although he was a scumbag, was the boss and to some extent a friend. And also another, the Rosemary ruin. After all, Bosco had much more conscience than the former boss, and he really felt sorry for those parents and children. But who was he then now? True, nobody. And he could not fix it in any way, only not to interfere in what was happening, to be either for one nor for the other. Why do I have this feeling? That something is going to happen today? He asked quietly into the void, looking nervously at the sun, which would soon be setting. A minute later, a man dressed in a brown cloak, with a sword on his back and his face hidden under a hood, comes to him. Bosco-sama. Bosco almost jumped from the unexpected arrival of his subordinate. Is everything okay? Why, yes. He rubbed his left temple, as if collecting his thoughts, and stood up. I'm just a little tired. It happens, that was something rare, loyal fighters and workers. Unlike Raoul, they respected Bosco more as a boss, and as a partner in the past, they highly valued him as a good fighter and comrade. Zig had already prepared everything that was necessary and checked it. Okay. The boss nodded with satisfaction. You can go, but warn the guards to be on the alert. There shouldn't be any missteps or troubles today. Yes, Bosco-sama. The subordinate bowed and quickly left, leaving Bosco alone. Alone with his serious concerns about today. Raoul, what have you done? Kagura, are you done yet? Naruto asked, putting the last of his things from the hideout into one of the bags. Ahas. She zipped up her bag, finishing packing her things. The house was now almost completely clean, except for the usual utensils that they hadn't brought. Give it here. The girl threw the bag sharply towards Naruto and he, having caught it, put it on a mountain of several bags, under which was an unrolled scroll, the contents of which were impossible to read because of the same bags. Having quickly inspected the number of bags and then also the room for any extra ones, Uzumaki put his right hand on the very top bag and he simply began to press all the bags into this scroll, and what is surprising, they were pressed into the scroll, as if into some kind of closet. And when the last bag disappeared into the scroll, the paper of the scroll suddenly turned black, but after a few seconds it turned white again, only the inscription remained on it. House. Uzumaki grinned slightly. Spatial control is a much better thing than sealing. Uzumaki abruptly turned to Kagura, who was simply standing and watching Naruto's machinations. What next? Next, you take the things, or more precisely, the scroll in which the things are enclosed, and wait for me. And you just go and have fun, beating up drug addicts with swords and clubs. The girl chuckled, folding her arms across her chest, while Naruto, smiling slightly, simply whistled. It's not fair. Ahem, he began to clear his throat, as if expressing indignation. You forgot, Mrs. Mikazuchi, that you owe me something. So debt is debt. She blushed sharply and began to look away, but at the same time, she proudly raised her nose, which made the young man barely hold back his laughter. Oh, come on. Don't get so cocky. Naruto came up to her and ruffled her hair, which made her stand not as proud, but as a little embarrassed. Oh, her cheeks even turned red. But it's still not fair. She exhaled. Can I have a go too? Kagura, if the situation were different, you would also have fought and kicked a few asses, but you need to do one small thing now. Keep an eye on our fat-ass corrupt mayor. Today is his last day in office. Should I cut it by 40 centimeters? She carefully rubbed the guard of her katana, which was on her belt. After these words, Naruto looked at her as if she was crazy. No. He began to shake his head negatively and at the same time gesticulate comically with his hands. Almost no. He'll just have to become a vegetable, even though he deserved to be sliced into a salad. No, you just have to make sure he doesn't run away. But as for the guards, you can cut their hair anywhere, even their fingernails and toenails. You're cruel, Naru. The girl smirked. What can you do? The boy laughed slightly. That's just the way I was raised. Both Naruto and Kagura laughed a little at this phrase, and then, as they calmed down, Naruto's blue eyes suddenly became unnaturally blue. They became brighter, light was shining from them, and, as it seemed to Kagura, mysterious symbols were coming from the pupils. This glow lasted for about 20 seconds, and then it stopped, but Naruto continued to stand rooted to the spot. This slightly scared the girl, although she should have gotten used to this by now. And then suddenly, "So, everyone has to go, or the chicken will burn," Naruto suddenly shouted cheerfully, clapping his hands, which made Kagura jump in surprise, but she didn't object, she just nodded and quickly walked out of the house. So they are already not far from the city. Uzumaki rubbed his chin. "Okay. It's time." Coming out of the house, which was not the same size on the outside as it was on the inside, which is why it could be mistaken for a children's toy house, Naruto began to walk quickly towards the forest. Damn! He stopped abruptly, remembering what he had forgotten to do just now. I keep forgetting. Raising his right hand towards the house, he extended his palm on which a dark blue transformation circle appeared. A couple of seconds later, the circle disappeared and Naruto, having re-equipped himself into the unknown costume, set off again. The house, meanwhile, began to flicker, making a whistling unusual sound, stronger and stronger, until it completely disappeared, as if it had never been there. And while the student of Acnologia and the kidnapped child from the village of Rosemary were going in different directions, somewhere several dozen kilometers from the city, a delegation from Alvarez was moving, in the form of 5 carts, in which sat 5 people, armed to the teeth with cold weapons, guarding a chest of some goods. Heroin, marijuana, spice, cocaine or something like that. I don't know what kind of drugs there are on Earth's edge. There were 4 horses for each cart, which were already somewhat exhausted and hungry, so it was decided to make a short stop to give the horses a break, and also give the guys a chance to have a snack and drink something cool. Today the weather is quite hot. Attention guys, as soon as everyone had set up the carts and tied the horses by the lake, which was nearby, the head of this delegation spoke, a man whose age is impossible to say, dressed in a gray shirt, a dark green vest and a cloak, the hood of which slightly covered his face, which was hidden by bandages. Why it was covered with them is unknown. Perhaps it was scarred, perhaps plastic surgery, or, which is extremely unlikely, he had no face at all. But now is not about that. We will rest for exactly an hour, and then continue on the journey to the end. Drink some water or whatever else you have, just not alcohol, and have a snack. As you say, boss. There is a boss. Adam. Can't you get drunk or something? Well, F.K. Such comments reached the ears of the boss, who meanwhile was walking to his cart, but he didn't care about them. Of course, they were drunks, rowdies and rude, but not absolute idiots and not traitors, which was important today. The boss's carriage was a masterpiece of spatial magic. Its internal size exceeded its external size several times. Due to this, there were a couple of rooms and an office in which the leader of the drug gang did all sorts of paperwork. Sitting down at the table, on which, not like Makarov's or Hiruzen's with Tsunade, papers and documents were neatly laid out, the man took off his hood, revealing one detail of his appearance, short chestnut hair sticking out like a hedgehog. So, the man picked up the document Bosco had sent a week earlier, which gave the mayor's permission to stay in the city of X for 3 days, indicating that he would be staying in the Misery Lost area. He looked at it again, once again made sure of its authenticity, checked for typos and the presence of the mayor's seal, then put it aside and began to silently read another document, an offer from the R system. Interesting reading. A childish but cold voice sounded in a whisper under his ears so unexpectedly that the man jumped from his chair and turned sharply, taking a blade out of the pocket space of the rearmament. But there was no one behind him, which made him sweat convulsively and feverishly look around. Don't bother yourself. After these words, which sounded literally behind his back in a quiet whisper, the man froze, but not from horror or from the same surprise, but because it is unclear how, but every cell of his body froze, with the exception of the internal organs, eyes, tongue and skull, although with some difficulty. Now your entire office is tuned to my biorhythms, and therefore almost your entire body is paralyzed, but if you resist, your body will not withstand the load, and you will be destroyed. Don't worry and don't resist, you'll soon get used to being still. The man realized, strangely enough, with his hand that the stranger wasn't lying. The harder he tried to move his hand, the more, or rather, even more impossible, it became more painful. "WH, who are you, what do you want?" The paralyzed man's voice did not sound loud and was somewhat hoarse for obvious reasons, but at the same time he continued to look around with his eyes. The unknown, now the man froze completely in horror. Even in the criminal circle of Arboles, which by the way is not particularly high, there were rumors about the mercenary N, the unknown. But he, the boss of the drug cartel, was afraid of the unknown much more than the rest of the criminals of Arboles. Several drug sales operations were disrupted by N, even Bosco warned about N. And this turned out to be both not in vain and at the moment absolutely in vain. "You have heard about me, which flatters me, because it is not every day that people hear about you from the neighboring continent. But as much as it flatters me, alas, I do not approve of your business, from drugs to slave trade." The man wanted to start making excuses, but N instantly put an end to this stream of words that had not yet begun. No need. No need to brush it off or assure me that this will never happen again. It is useless and also false and hypocritical. And I hate hypocrites very much. W, what do you need? The man tried with all his might not to try to resist the paralysis, in order to try to see it, and his efforts were not in vain. Right in front of him appeared a man of medium height, dressed in all black, from his boots to his cloak with a hood, in which absolutely nothing was visible. He only grabbed the paralyzed man by the chin, and began to examine the bandaged face more carefully. "Justice. Not for myself, but for one of my friends and for all of Fiore. And specifically through you, they will receive this justice. And your knowledge in your body will help me with this." N's body became translucent, although it was barely noticeable due to the fact that the room was lit only by a few candles. "Well then, a new body. Let's go," N walked quickly towards the paralyzed man and literally merged with him. The paralysis of the criminal passed from this merger, but he fell to the floor and began to convulse, wheezing something in a weak voice, while his hair and eyes changed colors. His hair became light orange, and his eyes became blue. These were all the visible changes so far, but judging by the previous 2 points, there should be more changes. RRAR. Cough yet. OHH. Damn. Databao, the boss, or rather Naruto, who had almost adapted to someone